science is like real music. Real science is beautiful. It's like an aria from Donizetti or from Verdi. Real science is music, and music is science. The only ugliness, the only thing, and we are never tired, the two of us, and neither is Procaccia either, of saying evil is war and killing and destroying. And I forgot to say, I didn't meet them, but they were really the people who guided me lifelong. Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy, the late Leo Tolstoy, when he renounced any patriotism, renounced his money, renounced everything. He didn't want anything except love. And Nelson Mandela and Albert Schweitzer.
So Nelson Mandela and Albert Schweitzer and Tolstoy.
Tolstoy. Mm-hmm. And there's missing one, Gandhi. Mm-hmm. These people have affected my life enormously. Mm-hmm. And I always ask myself, no matter what the people who hate them for whatever reason say about them, how would they have behaved in a way like that? I think what is not bringing the Middle East together in the way it should be is that the Middle East doesn't have people like Mandela, a man who spent 40 years in prison, mm-hmm. and come out of prison, doesn't want to take revenge or anything. Yeah. That's
forgiveness is also at the center of the entire thing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, Christ said, whoever haven't done anything right, he should
cast the first stone.
And Gandhi, you know, who unified this nation and fought the largest and strongest empire, British Empire, without shooting one bullet. Just this little man, mm-hmm. by strength of his spirit. And Albert Schweitzer, who left everything to live in Lambarina, in the jungle, to serve black people who have lepra and horrible diseases and cure them, and play his fantastic orgel and have his philosophy, which is very simple and very impressive. Albert Schweitzer said, actually, he is a relative of Jean-Paul Sartre. Mm-hmm. Jean-Paul Sartre, he's his uncle. Mm-hmm. He's Alsace, from Alsace. Mm-hmm. Neither German nor French. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he said, good is everything which promotes life. Mm-hmm. Bad is everything which demotes life. Mm-hmm. That much respect you have, mm-hmm. life. And these are things really which brought me to science. Mm-hmm. Because pure science cannot be harmful, because we search for the truth, and the truth is always better than lies. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed lately is, how oftentimes when we talk about the golden mean, we talk about aesthetics and we talk about the world of art. And yet, what has dawned on me as of late is that the golden mean and its use in the sciences is also where beauty lies. So that science itself, when you find optimal function, it's also simultaneously beautiful. And so that beauty isn't something separate from science. It actually, they merge together.
You have a very nice paper, I read this paper, where you put this point and expand on it. And really, the criteria that beauty is a criteria in science was brought to me by a comment which I think it was Weizsäcker or Heisenberg who recounted in a lecture I was present. where he said they were together with Paul Dirac,
With Dirac. Uh-huh.
Paul Dirac, and visiting, I think, Tate Gallery, where
Tate
all the
Gallery.
modern.
Uh-huh.
And it was Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, and Paul Dirac together. And Dirac quickly went to a picture by Monet, I think lily flowers or something on the beach. And he said, this point is wrong. The way he put it, and immediately the big heart and brain of Niels Bohr, when he was young, relatively young, he was the oldest of all of them, he said, this is typical for our young Paul Dirac. Paul Dirac was the youngest of them. He would consider beauty a criterion science. And he said, he didn't say this point is ugly. He said it's wrong, you know. And it is really like that, you know. He was addressing then Heisenberg, and he said, when he gave me a manuscript to read, if I make any correction, he gets so angry and he escapes from it and he doesn't change it. Because when Paul Dirac do something, it's almost perfect. And it is true. You could never, ever got Hardy's criteria. Lucien Hardy.
The criteria.
Criteria of quantum entanglement, which Lucien Hardy is a very clever scientist in Parameter Institute. I think before that he was in England. Any case, he used the cat and bra formalism of Dirac. And it's not just formalism. If he used anything else to try to drive his criteria, it would have failed. Because there is something, I know that, there's something very, very potent which led him to have the exact solution for the quantum entanglement of two particles. And they tested it in the laboratory. The genius people of experiment tested.
Yes.
And it is right.
Yep.
And now, as you know, what did he find? It's the golden mean to the power of 5.
Power of 5.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What else can nature tell you about that beauty and love and science are just tautology? It's different word for the same thing.
And as you've pointed out, he really at the time didn't realize what he had.
No.
And someone else had to tell him.
It was a fantastic, he's a teacher. David Merman. He's a teacher of Feigenbaum. Yeah. I know about David Berman.
At Cornell,
Berman.
is it?
He was in Cornell.
Yeah.
And when Mitchell, who was a very good friend of mine, and of Procaccia, now, when he moved from where he was and went to Cornell, he's a real New Yorker, you know, raised and born and raised, I think, New Yorker. So he liked his food and wine.
Sure.
Like Neil Diamond, you know.
Okay.
When he came to Cornell, he couldn't take it because the cuisine was not like in New York. So he left because of that. But the cooperation between a teacher, the most fantastic teacher, like David Merman, and a genius by any standard, a genius like Mitchell Feigenbaum, something almost extraordinary come out of it. And he is the one who immediately said, this is the golden mean. And he wrote a paper about it. And I think I discovered that it is the golden mean independently. And I was so happy, and I was a bit angry because he was 5 years before me.
Right. But the nice thing is you acknowledge that. You don't try to hide the fact that someone predates the discovery.
Yeah.
And along those lines, you know, and I told you that Recently, I was at the Science of Consciousness conference in Tucson, Arizona. It's all Hemmeroff and Penrose, and the basis of their ideas are the microtubules, which are generally made up of 13 filaments, 8 spiraling one way, 5 the other, Fibonacci approximations to the golden mean. But here's the point. I was able to interview Lucian Hardy, and it's quite astounding. We've already discussed this, that and he's a very nice man, I must say. He's a very humble, nice person.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, he still doesn't quite realize what he stumbled onto.
Yes, this is again a book and something which I learned from Paul Dirac. Paul Dirac was a fantastic man, although a lot of people think he was a very weird man. Maybe I am a weird man like him, so I like him. No. Paul Dirac, for instance, doesn't talk much. He doesn't like. He say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Very much unlike Richard Feynman, who's like me. They can't stop talking. So the two met,
Mm-hmm.
and some journalist was recording what you say. Typically, the meeting was like that. Richard Feynman will talk for half an hour, and then Paul would say, yes. And then comes the next slot. So they asked now, the man who was interviewing both, because they are working on quantum field theory.
Yeah.
And Julian Schwinger had the better theory, there is no doubt. It's nearer to our golden mean. He asked, why you talk so little? He said, I'm Swiss, French Swiss, and my father. We moved to England. So I spoke only English. And I couldn't, but my father insisted on talking French at home. Since when we make a mistake, my father would be angry. So I stopped talking, to avoid talking at all. And he wrote a book about the role of fear in science, to the extent, and when he make a theory, he's afraid to check it if it's right or wrong. And he leave it to somebody else to find it so that he doesn't find his own. Because fear is enormous. I think there is this fear of the pressure, peer pressure,
Mm-hmm. Peer pressure, mm-hmm.
numerology, crackpots,
Numerology, crackpots.
golden mean, fantastic. And so people are not like us in general.
Mm-hmm.
We are very fortunate. We can do and say what we think without being, there is no punitive taxation we have to pay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't put food on my table. They don't bring me a house. I'm a free man.
We're not bound by their limited paradigm and ideas.
Yes, but the web of life is very strong sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people avoid a lot of things out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to get in disrepute. If the head of the institute where you are working is against anything which can affect the budget of the institute, and that's the only thing he's thinking about, because it's a bureaucrat and and money is important. So you better not upset him by playing with the golden mean.
But that's so unfortunate. By playing with the golden mean, because they're afraid, and they call it mere numerology.
Yes.
And it's just nonsense. It's at the heart of the
I
highest...
said once to a very, very, very eminent person, if through numerology I get all the mass spectrum, which nobody can determine, of elementary particle, if through that I can explain dark energy, if, then I suggest in all hands, like St. Augustine, he said, leave women and study mathematics. I'm not St. Augustine, but I would say, leave everything and study numerology, you know.